Aquanee family, that's Cutler Squampson. That is to say, peace be unto you, family. How are you doing? Neesu Wushuwunoag from the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America and also Pumham Sage of the Meshipog Nahigantit tribe. Wanted to take a moment just to address something that I've been seeing more prevalent about in the social media spaces, and I wanted to make sure to at least put some words on it because I think it has potential to be very dangerous and cause some conflicts for individuals looking to identify and reconnect with who they actually are. For those who are familiar or have been following FANA, you know that FANA is a confederation of pre-colonial nations. So it's several nations that have come together to form this institution called FANA. FANA itself is not a nation. It's a federation of nations. In each of those nations that join FANA, our criteria is that they have a substantiated bloodline connection in history that predates U.S. occupation in these lands. And we think that's very important, mainly because you have to know who you are before you can try to address anything that's going on. And I'm saying this because I'm starting to see what I'm going to call a lot of pan-Aboriginal groups popping up, which aren't necessarily a bad thing. We got our initial information by being involved in a pan-Aboriginal group, which I'm not even going to disrespect us by mentioning their name. But that's how we got a lot of the basic information to help us get on the right track. So we don't knock pan-Aboriginal groups. We knock them when they start to call themselves nations, because they're not nations. Nations are bloodline ties to specific areas for groups of people that have been there. So you can't be a pan-Aboriginal nation. You can be a pan-Aboriginal confederation, if that's even proper terminology to use, but you can't be a pan-Aboriginal nation. Further, if you're going to go back and be traditional, your chiefs should be flowing from specific bloodlines. There were bloodlines that were acknowledged, and the chiefs flowed from these bloodlines, and they were passed down, and they were groomed to be a certain way. Other chiefs would pop up, based upon valor or things that they had accomplished, but they most certainly weren't just popping up claiming to be chiefs of everything. And I think that's what's really concerning to me, and that's really why I wanted to do this video. You can't be a chief or a nation of everything. We weren't all one people. To the Europeans, we were one people, but we had cultural differences, linguistic differences, spirituality differences, language differences, and to wipe all of that away, to just say, oh, we were all one people, is craziness. The Powhatans were beefing with the Iroquois. The Nahiganset were beefing with the Pokanokets. All of these nations had issues with each other. So to wipe all of that away and say, oh, we're all one people, is craziness. And that's not a claim that can be substantiated. And remember, when we're dealing with this European colonial system, it's commerce that we're dealing in. The history and all of that is backing up a commercial claim that you're making. So when I say that I'm a Meshipog Nahiganset, my bloodlines are showing that I have the right to make that commercial claim to these lands, which are contemporarily referred to as Rhode Island, but traditionally, in the language of my people, referred to as Meshipog. And there's a particular pond I can go to. And then there's an area next to that called Webusset. There's another area next to that called Nudakunkanet. That's where my particular place of habitation is, in Nudakunkanet. So you can't say, oh, it's all one land and it's all one people. That's not how our people were. Now, is that necessarily the most beneficial thing? No, but it's the truth. Our people were not all unified as one people. They had issues with each other. And that's how the Europeans came in and were able to exploit that. But you can't say, oh, well, we had issues with each other, so we're going to ignore all of those differences and we're just going to be... You're not going to be able to substantiate that claim commercially to this Eurocentric white supremacist system that we're in. You can't say, oh, we're the people of Turtle Island. The term turtle is English. And if you come up here, this was not Turtle Island, this was Meshipog. Collectively, it might have been referred to everywhere. They might have started referring to it as Turtle Island when we started to realize that there was an assault upon Aboriginal peoples as a whole in this place called the Americas contemporarily. But this specific land right here is Meshipog in Narragansett territory. All right? You go a little bit further north, northwest, you're going to bump into Pokanoket territory. All right? You head out west, you're going to run into Pequot territory. And then the Pequots took a lot of stuff over from Pagussets, from Nipmuc, you know. So there's these specific people that are in lands that you cannot just brush their history and their bloodlines aside to be a pan-Aboriginal nation. You can't do that. You have to be who you are. And I'm not saying this. I saw one brother saying, oh, FANA's turning their nose up. Nonsense. We're telling you to do the right thing and find out who you are. And this is the other issue, too. I think a lot of this pan-Aboriginal stuff comes out of it because people haven't even unified with their own people. They haven't even unified with their own family members. We had one individual reach out and say, well, what can she do? She doesn't get along with her family. So what can she do as an individual? And our response was nothing. You need to go make amends with your family and figure out a way to get them on board. And this was the thing that I posed. I said, if you're unable to unify your family, perhaps you're not the chief. And that's a very, very real statement that I'll make. Chiefs are able to unify their people and get them on the same page. Having the knowledge isn't enough. You can have the knowledge all you want. If you can't get your people behind you, then how are you a chief? If you can't get your specific own people behind you, how are you a chief? And I personally think that's why a lot of this Pan-Africanism, I mean, not Pan-African, yeah, that's craziness too, but Pan-Aboriginalism, as far as being a nation, is coming from. People aren't willing to go and make amends with their own people. And you have to. We were unified as specific groupings of people before this European colonial invasion started. And if you're going to do away with it, you need to go back to what it was before this craziness got going. So you need to go back and make amends with your sister or your brother or your cousins or your mother or your father in some instances. And you need to be who your people are. And then once you have unified with your people and your people have put their stock in you saying, you're our leader, then you can come and talk to other chiefs who have already accomplished that or been working on that for years. For years. It bothers me that I see all of these new chiefs popping up. Because I'm like, how is everyone a chief? In particular, me, I got approval. First of all, I got appointed to be a chief and didn't want the position. This is back in like 2008, 2007. Didn't want the position because I didn't feel like I was the appropriate person for it. I didn't feel like I was old enough for it. I didn't feel like I had enough knowledge about everything that entitles to be a chief. And they still appointed me to the position of the war chief. Why? Because they said they saw characteristics in me that were worthy of being a chief. It wasn't something I proclaimed myself to be. Then, eventually, I went and sat down with the acknowledged chief of the federally recognized tribe. Had good conversations with him. Broke down my bloodlines to him, which he was very well aware of. Broke down the history to him of the different divisions between the lands and the different groupings of people, which he was very well aware of. Told him what my intent and purpose was, and that I had not been self-proclaimed, but had been appointed by elders to be in this position because of the work that I had already been doing and because I had already been showing, in their opinion, the characteristics of being able to move with that title. And he gave me his approval. So all of these self-proclaimed chiefs that when you get into it and start asking them, well, who are your bloodlines, or who's this, or who, and they can't substantiate these questions, you really make a mockery of everything that's going on, and it really speaks to individualism and ego, in my opinion. You don't need to be a chief to do good things for your people. And to be quite honest, for those people who are bona fide chiefs, who have to walk with this weight and this responsibility, there's certain days where you're like, I wish I wasn't the chief today. There's lots of days when you're like, I wish that this responsibility was not on my shoulders, because I'll tell you right now, dealing with people, family, oh my goodness, which is why a lot of us are separated right now. But that doesn't wipe away or doesn't give you the right to say, I'm simply going to ignore all of that and start something brand new where I can be the leader. If we're going to be a nation, then you have to be an actual nation. You can't follow this colonization foolishness of we're just going to make new stuff up because we didn't like what was going on before. That's what a pan-Aboriginal nation is to me. An extension of European colonization being played out through individuals who are claiming to be American Aborigine, yet don't want to get back to what we were prior to European colonization. You are what your bloodlines were, whether you like it or not. That's what you have to get back to. Isn't that the whole argument that Aboriginal folks are making to Europeans? You're not Americans, you're from Europe. So how are we going to tell another group of people, you're not Americans, you're for Europe, and then ourselves claim to be from everywhere over here as well? It's not logical, it's not traditional, all right? Your languages differentiate between you and other groupings of people. Your bloodline differentiates between you and other groupings of people. Your culture differentiates between you and other groupings of people. And even if we don't look like the stereotypical sort of pictures that they've put out there about what a quote-unquote Indian is supposed to look like, it doesn't give you the right to say, well, I'm going to do what I want now. That's craziness. Honor your mother and your fathers, all right? If you're an Arawak, then be an Arawak. Don't be a pan-Aboriginal nation. You're from an Arawak nation. And there were several different caciques, several different tribes within the Arawak nation. And there were several different clans within each of those different tribes. The clan is the family. Tribe is the grouping of families. The nation is the grouping of tribes. All right? We've got a hard enough road as it is, fighting these stereotypes. Not to be feeding into them by trying to do stuff that's not traditional. It takes work, it takes energy, but we have to get back to who we were prior to all this foolishness started if we're going to move forward. It's like if you come to a fork in the road and you go the wrong way and you go way, way down that road. You don't just keep going No, you come back to the fork and you get back on the right road, right? So we have to come all the way back. We have to come all the way back to who we were prior to this craziness that's starting right now. All right? And you have to honor your mother and your father. You have to honor them. Plain and simple. You can't be a pan-Aboriginal nation. There's no such thing as a pan-Aboriginal nation. There were confederations of nations, groupings of nations. Some, paid tribute to other nations. Some, tribes paid tribute to bigger tribes, were forced to go to war with them, and there's your nation. But you can't just be include an Arawak with an Algonquian with a Chata and say, oh, we're all one nation. That's craziness. That's craziness. All right? You're not going to be able to substantiate that claim. You're not going to be able to make any land claims. because you're going to bump into nations that are going to say, we don't know who you people are. Our people been here since going all the way back. And guess what? There goes the substantiation of your claim. Once one person can knock that out, I mean, let's look at this Moorish claim of this land being Al-Marak. Yet, here in Narragansett territory, we never paid homage to any Moroccan empire. So there goes that whole claim. How can this whole land be Al-Marak if the Narragansetts are saying we never paid homage to any Moroccan empire? How can the land be Al-Marak? It's a false claim. How can you be a pan-Aboriginal nation if the Narragansetts are going to say we weren't pan-Aboriginal nation up here? There goes the substantiation of your claim. You want to be a membership group to share information, to share history? That's beautiful. You know, you want to be a confederation of different nations who know who they are, who have established and substantiated their heritage and ties to their land? That's beautiful. But to be a pan-Aboriginal nation? Just a few thoughts, battling this flu, trying to get over it. I hope that this day finds you well. It's very snowy up here. And just want to share them thoughts, people, because there's enough foolishness going on. Like I said, we got enough going on fighting all of these stereotypes in terms of we don't look like we're supposed to look like. And, you know, just all of this craziness going on. Let's not feed into it. Let's not feed the fire ourselves. Let's not stoke the flames of craziness. If it's artistic, you know, then say it's artistic. But don't claim to be a nation of people who aren't connected to any nations. That's not. Be who you are. Be proud of who you are. Connect with others who are proud of who they are, who know who they are. Move in unity. But be who you are when you're moving in unity. That's how we'll get past all of this. Trying to skip and ignore and take the fast way out, and people wanting to be leaders and chiefs, and that's not going to cut it for our people. That's not going to cut it for your people. That's not going to cut it for my people. Because I'll tell you right now, you come around these parts talking that craziness, you're going to be politely informed that that's not how things worked around here. And you're going to be told that you should probably keep that conversation to yourself when you come around these parts. Because these parts around here in Narragansett or Pokanoket or Nipmuc or the other nations that were here that gave their blood and their lives trying to tear down this European thing that was going on. And in a lot of ways too late, because we weren't unified. We didn't respect and acknowledge the fact that despite we weren't getting along with each other, we had a bigger issue going on. That's what FANA's whole purpose is. Remembering what happened, how we didn't have unity as our individual nations, and coming together as our individual nations to stand in strength. That's where the Europeans got their concept of government here in these lands. Each state is, for lack of a better way of looking at it, its own nation that came together with the other nation states to form this thing called the U.S., the United States. Get what I'm saying? That's what FANA, Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America. So there's several different nations who can substantiate their blood lines and heritage to specific land areas. If you can't do that, if you're trying to claim everything, then you're just really acting Moorish under a different title, Aboriginal. And in which case you have no business speaking badly about Moors. You're doing the same thing they're trying to do. Thank you for listening to me, family. Peace and blessings be unto you. Kapish Kanash. Hope to connect with you all soon. Aho.